Well, I think the SBC is a great means for fulfilling the Great Commission because, one, we have the right vision, and that is taking the gospel to the nations. Also, we have a good mechanism with our International Mission Board where churches come together, 40 plus thousand, partner together to get the gospel in places where it would be very difficult for individual churches to ever get. In other words, I am absolutely convinced that we can do more together than we can do apart. And so that's why I believe that young leaders and young believers in the SBC should stay committed to the Southern Baptist Convention, and in particular help us fund the cooperative program. I do believe we're in a critical moment in the SBC. I certainly believe that one of the major crisis moments took place, or at least began in 1979 with the conservative resurgence. And by God's grace, now 30 years later, we've seen the fruit of that. There has been a theological renewal in our Southern Baptist Convention. It's wonderfully expressed in the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. However, the conservative resurgence was never an end in and of itself. It was always for the purpose of evangelism and missions. It was always as an end goal to get the gospel to the nations. And so that's why I believe, like many others, that the real need of the hour now is to build upon the conservative resurgence with a Great Commission resurgence where we take the glorious gospel that's been recovered and see that that gospel makes its way to all the nations. Well, I think this meeting that we're having in Louisville is going to be a wonderful event. You've got kind of a mixture of older leaders, or at least middle-aged leaders like myself and Dr. Moeller. But then you have younger leaders that are going to be there as well, like Daniel Montgomery and Ed Stetzer and Mark Dever. And so you kind of got a cross-section, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's important because you're the future of the convention. The young leaders and the young believers in our convention are going to take the reins in the near future, whether anybody likes it or not. That's just reality. And so I think it's important for us to come together, to try to be like-minded in terms of our commitment to the Great Commission, in terms of our commitment to the local church. That's one of the things I really like about this particular meeting, is that it's going to have, by the very nature of who is there, a focus upon the local church. And I think we need to be reminded that the Southern Baptist Convention is a convention of churches, and we exist to serve the churches, at least what I do in a seminary. We're not the end. We are simply a means and a servant to the churches. And so I think a recovery of the importance of the local church and seeing the local church as the mission station is crucial for the health of the SBC in the days ahead. And I believe this particular conference and forum has that as part of its goal. Those who forget the past are destined to repeat its mistakes. And that's true over a long period of time. It's also true over a short period of time as well. And I'll be honest, it concerns me that we now have students in our seminaries who not only never heard a W.A. Crystal or an Adrian Rogers or Herschel Pops preach, they hardly have any understanding or appreciation for who these men were and what these men accomplished. And so we make a tremendous mistake if we do not go back and both learn from and honor the great heritage that has been bequeathed to us from these wonderful, faithful servants of the Lord. At the same time, we cannot be nostalgic. And I think the SBC has a real danger, runs a real risk in becoming nostalgic. We can't go back and boast and brag and rejoice and focus on the glory days. We need to trust that God has the best days ahead for us and in our future. And so we look back to the past and say, thank you, we honor you, we learn from you, we esteem you highly, as the scriptures teach that we should. At the same time, we look forward to the assignment that we now have from God to take the gospel to the nations. I think being Baptist in the 21st century means being a Great Commission people. Out of that, of course, we need to understand that at the very heart of that is teaching our people, discipling them, and teaching them to observe all that Jesus has commanded. And so at the very heart of reaching the nations with the gospel is also teaching them, training them, and discipling them, that they know what they believe, they know why they believe, I think for that to come about, there's going to have to be a very fervent commission to being a theologically informed people. I think that happens when we have a pulpit that is committed to expository preaching. I think that will happen when we see every member a minister, and that indeed we think that all who follow Jesus Christ should have the mind and the heart of a missionary. In other words, we should be working very hard to fill our churches with missionary-minded believers who see themselves as on assignment for King Jesus in fulfilling the Great Commission, whether they go across the world or whether they're just driving down the street to their job every day.